everybody, it's Emily from Sew Savory, and today I'm going to show you one of my very favorite pattern hacks, sewing hacks, which is to not hem anything. So if I can avoid hemming, I do, unless I'm going for a very certain look, because I like adding cuffs. So today I'm going to show you, instead of hemming, how you can just add a cuff, and we're going to add cuffs to the bottom of leggings, the sleeves of a shirt, and actually the hem of a shirt as well. So lots of cuffs coming your way, and I'm excited to sew with you today. So let me just go ahead and do my couple of shares here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I'd love for you just to say hi and let me know you're around so that I can check in with you. I'm doing well here today, and I hope you are as well. All right, so I am just gonna refresh the page here. Hi, Mary. Glad you guys are here. My computer's being a little bit slow, so we're gonna give it some time. Hi, Carolyn. All right. Did you guys see the cute Christmas table runner I shared a couple days ago? It's a favorite, and I can't wait to pull it out of the box. I think I might have to get my Christmas decorations out this weekend. Hi, Susan. All right. So let me go ahead and do this. I'm gonna edit so you can click it. Hi, Michelle. Glad you guys are trickling in. Hey, Nancy. What is this doing? Okay. Ooh, my Facebook editing looks different. I love when they change things on me. Not. It's not letting me tag myself. It's not okay. Well, I guess I'll tag the pattern group. So if you want to join the pattern group, you can look. How do I save this now? Oh my goodness, you guys, this is all weird. Sorry. Oh, Roberta, you already put your stuff up. I'm so jealous. I totally need to. And I can't even figure out what I'm doing here. That did not edit it. Let me try again. It looks all different. Don't you love when you like try to do something and overnight Facebook changed something or someone else changed something? I don't know. Why? Why is it being weird? Okay, we're gonna try one more thing. If it isn't what I think it is, then we're just gonna give up. I'm trying to just tag myself in the description of the video so that if people aren't watching on my page, they can come over and find me. But of course, that seems too difficult. Oh, there I am. Okay. And save. All right, so if you missed the very, very, very beginning, I am going to show you one of my favorite sewing hacks, which is to not hem. It's to add a cuff. So this totally isn't for everybody, and I can understand if you're thinking this is not something I would ever do, because I love hemming, but I don't. I don't love hemming, and especially because I sew so much with knit fabrics, adding cuffs is such a simple and easy way to avoid the hem. So today I'm going to show you how to add cuffs to the bottom of leggings. I'm going to show you how to add cuffs to the ends of sleeves and to the bottom of the shirt. So we're gonna add 3 cuffs, and I've got 2 pieces of clothing here in various amounts of sewing already. And the 2 patterns that I'm using, I have linked in the description of this video. So I'm using the girls free legging pattern. Okay, so you can see I've got the elastic in the waistband. I have a tag on the back. Isn't this fun fabric? It's like sweater knit. I made a pair of these and wore them yesterday, and I love them so much. And but we're not gonna hem it. We're gonna add cuffs, okay? So that's one thing that we're gonna do. Now, the other thing we're gonna do is I've pre-started the girls' swing tee. And if you remember last week, I told you that I am making my 3 kids' green shirts out of the same fabric to maybe take some pictures of them, like when we go cut our Christmas tree or something like that for a little Christmassy picture. So every year we go, so this is the one I made last week with the hood, the boys t-shirt with the added hood. Then I just made a boys t-shirt short sleeves because my middle child says long sleeves make his arms itch. And then, so my daughter, I didn't have enough green, so we're adding some of the same red fabric. But the green, I actually put this super soft sweater on the inside. I don't know if you can see. So it's really soft. And then the outside, I'm actually putting the loops. So it's not as pretty, but I think my kids will really love having the soft on the inside. So on the red sweater, I put the sweater soft on the outside, and then they'll have the loops on the inside. So one of each. So this, you can see short sleeves. So we are going to add green cuffs to the sleeves. Okay, and then I want this to be able to be worn with leggings. I don't know if these leggings are a little bit the wrong color, but she has other leggings that would work with this, or jeans, but we're going to add a cuff to the bottom to make it a little bit longer. So all of those will help me to avoid hemming while finishing these clothes. So I thought I'd walk you through that today. Now, real quickly, let's just take a look at some tips for creating these cuffs because I've already created the cuff. So I'm just gonna tip this camera down here a little bit. So you can see this is the end of my sleeve. And I usually cut my cuffs depending on who I'm making this for, 1 to 2 inches smaller than the end of the sleeve, so it's a nice tight cuff. Now, for my boys, I'd probably make the cuff a little bit looser because they don't want something really tight, but for my daughter, I want a tight cuff, and she has tiny wrists, so I know I can go much smaller. So you want to cut the fabric, the direction of fabric where it stretches the most side to side. You want to compare it to the bottom of either your sleeve or the bottom of the pants, or even the bottom of the shirt, although that we're not taking in so much, we're just really adding a layer to it. And then you are going to cut your cuff twice as tall as you want it, and then the width. So again, it should be taller, and then the stretch goes side to side. And then you will put the side that you want out, fold it in half with the right sides out and the wrong sides facing in. And then we'll be able to just pin it on and sew that on there. So that's how I create the cuff. I usually don't have a cuff piece. I just lay my fabric out like this. I'll take a square of the fabric that I'm using for the cuffs. I compare it. I kind of cut it down. And once I've got one, I'll use that one to create the template for the second cuff. So I usually just sort of wing the cuffs, and they're essentially a rectangle, but it's just how tight do you want them. And again, to make sure the stretch goes from side to side on your fabric instead of up and down. So you don't really need much stretch this way, but you do need to make sure you have stretch this way. And if it's not a very stretchy fabric, then you need to make sure that you cut it longer and closer to the actual width of the sleeve. If it's really stretchy, then you can go ahead and use that to gather in the end of the sleeve. Okay? So if you have questions while I'm doing this, go ahead and ask. I will do my best to watch and take a look, but we are going to move over here to the sewing area and add these cuffs to what I'm working on. All right, so let's first add the cuffs to the bottom of the pants. So these are leggings, I'm going to open one up so you can just see how it compares. And this is double brushed poly, which is pretty equal 4-way stretch. So what I've done to add a little bit of a different design feature is I have cut the fabric going the opposite direction for the cuff. So I think that will be just a little bit cute on the bottom. So you can see that the stripes go up and down on the pant leg, and then I'm going to cut the cuff, or I did cut the cuff, and I'm going to sew it with the stripes going side to side. Okay, now for the leggings, because they're already tight, I don't need to cut them a lot smaller. So my legging cuff is really only about a 1/2 inch smaller than the end of the leg opening. And then if I want to narrow the ankle even more, when I sew that inseam, I can take a wider seam allowance at the bottom of the leg. So there's my cuff pinned on the edge, the bottom of that leg, and I'll go ahead and pin or clip the second one on as well before I start sewing. Okay, so again, these are just slightly smaller than the bottom of the leg. Not a whole lot. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and sew those across, and then I'll sew the inseam so you can kind of see the finished result of the leggings that I'm making. And again, if you're looking for either of these patterns, I have linked both of them in the description of this video. It's the free kids legging pattern and the girls swing tee. I'm making the long sleeve version, but there's also a short sleeve version as well. Now, the one thing I didn't mention is that if you're adding a cuff, you need to shorten the legs unless you know that the legs are already too small. So be aware of that. I usually just fold up the pattern piece when I'm cutting out the sleeve or the leg and leave 1 to 2 inches depending on how wide I'm going to make my cuff. So I knew I wanted to make this a nice wide cuff on the bottom of the leggings. So, you know, I took at least, 3 inches? It's actually closer to 4. So I'd rather leggings be a little bit too long than a little too short. So I probably took 3 inches off the bottom of the legging pattern, and now I'm adding 4 inches back on. Because my daughter is tall and thin, which means she wears about a 4 in the width and about a 7 in the length, 6 or 7 in the length, which is why I sew for her, because nothing fits her from the store. So leggings from the store do not stay up if they're long enough. And I know some people, right, your kids have the opposite problem. They need it wider and shorter. So this is where sewing for your kids comes in great handy, because you can pretty easily, especially with knit patterns, customize what you're making. And that's what I love doing. So, all right, here's cuff number 2. All right, so what I'm going to do now to finish up these leggings is turn them right sides in and fold it in half. And I'm going to start sewing at one cuff, and we'll sew up the cuff, up the inside of the leg, over the crotch, down the other leg, down the other cuff, and then we'll finish. So now you can sew your cuffs not the way I'm sewing them, right? This is the cheater way of sewing cuffs because I did it when the leg was open. If you don't want that seam showing on the inside of your cuff, you will have to sew the inseam first, then sew your cuff into a circle, and then put the circles together. So you can definitely do that. It does eliminate the seam, but for me, the reason I'm adding cuffs is simplicity and quickness, and doing the cuffs that way does not help with that goal because it does take longer and does not make it simpler. I might as well just hem. So I don't know if you heard at the beginning, but I said one of the reasons that I add cuffs to so many things is because I just don't care for hemming. Especially with knit fabric, you have to worry about making sure that it's stretchy and did your machine work correctly and are those seams going to break, all those things. So for me, if I just add a cuff, it eliminates a lot of those issues. and I just find it so much easier to sew cuffs. So if I'm going for ease, then I also don't sew it in the round. So I'll show you what happens when you don't sew it in the round. And that is, oh, good. Wait, let me go back. Patty, are you suggesting any gifts this year? So I reshared I think my Christmas list suggestion from last year is still up. I should go back and see if I need to add anything to that post, if there's anything fun that's new in the sewing department on Amazon. But I'm trying to think if I have any new, I just love the clips. So they're still my favorite. But I don't have anything necessarily right now that I can think of that I've been suggesting. But let me think about that. The clips are my favorite. Okay, so here's what happens when you sew the cuff on first and then sew up the inseam, whether it's on the pant leg or the shirt sleeve, is you have two things. One, you have this seam that will be on the inside of the cuff. So you will feel this. So if this bothers you, don't do it this way. You also, if you use a serger, have a serger tail that you need to finish. You can fold it over and zigzag this, or you can thread it back through, which is what I'm gonna do real quick. Someone asked, I'm sorry I didn't see who it was, about doing this on the regular sewing machine. Absolutely. Just set a zigzag stitch so your stitch is nice and stretchy with your knit fabric, and you can sew this whole project, leggings for sure, which I've totally done, without a serger. So I think if you click through to my legging post, I show one version that is all done on a regular sewing machine, just to show that it can be done. So use your zigzag or your knit stitch. Make sure your machine is still giving a nice stretchy stitch and that you've got a knit needle. And there you go. Yes, Amber. So Christmas on cuffs, on pajamas is for sure. So again, I'm using two of my free patterns, but you can do this on any pattern, t-shirt pattern, or legging pattern that you have that you love. It doesn't have to be mine. I've just linked mine for your ease, but you totally don't have to use them. So here are the finished leggings. So here's the top. Sorry, it doesn't even all fit in the screen. But here's the bottom. Aren't the cuffs so cute? So I think it just adds like a fun design detail as well. So you could eliminate this seam. You would still see the seam on the outside, but you wouldn't have the seam on the inside if you do sew your cuffs afterwards, right, in a circle. So that is something you can do. And I can show one. Maybe I'll show one on the sleeves just to show you what it looks like. So there you go. So you've got leggings, and I named these originally girls leggings, but really I've been calling them kid leggings because I've used the pattern several times for my sons as well. I upsize a little bit to make like fitted knit PJs. I've also not upsized and made my oldest tight black leggings to wear as athletic leggings under sports shorts for like football and stuff like that. So we don't call them leggings, we call them athletic tights, and then it's all good. But really, they are a great pattern that can be used for boys and girls, and it goes from sizes 18 months to 12. So you've got quite a range on that as well. Okay, so that's one. We've got the leg cuffs done. Now let's take a look at the shirt, and I'm going to add two types of cuffs. The bottom is more of a band, so maybe I'll use the term band, but let me just show you what we're gonna do. So, okay, let's lay this out. So the end of the sleeve here, we are going to add a cuff. And like I said at the beginning, I have cut this one a good inch smaller. So we have a ½ inch on either side that we're gonna stretch. And that's because I want the cuff to be nice and tight around the wrist. I don't want saggy sleeves. I wore a shirt yesterday that was made out of waffle knit, and it kind of sagged as the day went. I wore it, not even my daughter, and I was sad because it was sagging down and I had to keep pushing up, and I don't love that. So if you like tight cuffs, make tight cuffs. And should I sew? I'll sew this one flat, and then I'll sew the other one. I'll make the sacrifice. I'll sew the other one the way that I don't love to do it, which is in a circle, so that you guys can see what that looks like. Okay, I'll do it. And then we're gonna add a band to the bottom of this shirt so that we don't have any hems at all on our cute little shirt here. So here's the shirt. I've already sewed the neckband and the shoulders. I put the arms on. So we're adding the cuffs on the end, and then I'm gonna add a band on the bottom to give a little extra length. So this is cut. I did not shorten this one because actually I wanna use the band to add length, whereas here I shortened the sleeves and then we're adding the length back on with the cuff, all right? So a couple of different ways that you can do that as you're thinking about adding cuffs and or a bottom band, as we'll call that one. All right, so this one I do need to stretch a little bit as I'm sewing. And you want to try to make sure that you're stretching the cuff fabric and not the sleeve fabric. Because we don't need to stretch out the bottom of our sleeve. We're really just stretching out the cuff. Okay, so there is cuff number one. Fun, we have this fun olive and red sweater. It's actually the same fabric, 2 different colors. I think I got it in 2 different mystery boxes. So neither one I necessarily picked out, but I've been able to find fun uses for both of it. I'm going to sew up the side seam. I don't know if I finished my story at the beginning, but I'm making these matching shirts for my kids, and I'm gonna pick out some sort of iron-on decal for the front to make them more Christmassy, because every year we have taken a picture of my kids with Santa, and then I have Christmas picture frames in my living room, and so at Christmas time I decorate with pictures from Christmases past of my kids, most of them sitting on Santa's lap. We've done a couple where we haven't done that, but most every year we've had picture with Santa. So I don't think that's happening this year because I'm not really going to make the effort to seek out an alternative COVID Santa to go sit on his lap, or I'm not going to worry about like pre-registering because certain places are having a certain amount of people go and it's a weird photo thing. So blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do it. So, but we do go cut a real Christmas tree every year. So I thought what I would do is have these shirts, and while we're up in the mountains and while there's snow and it's pretty, I'm going to snap a picture of them, hopefully with a pretty background and these shirts, and then I can use that for this year's photo that I put in a Christmas frame. So, long story. All right, so here's side seam number 1, and we have the cuff that has the seam, so we're going to finish it and then we'll do the other side differently so you can see the 2 options for sewing cuffs. All right, so pull those threads back through that one. Now I'm going to sew the other side seam without the cuff. All right, so it's just the red end, and we will add the cuff on afterwards. Okay, but you'll be able to see, you'll probably be able to see why I don't love it, because it is a little bit more work and it's a little bit more finicky, which is one of the reasons to avoid hems in the first place. I would say especially if you don't have a serger or a cover stitch, you know, hemming knits does get a little trickier with your regular sewing machine. Or if you're switching back and forth to a twin needle, which I did for years and years, and I loved it. But it is a switch, so you don't have to switch back and forth if you're just adding cuffs, because you can just keep sewing with your knit stitch or your zigzag that you're doing. Okay, so I dropped the cuff. All right, so what I want to do is with right sides together, I'm going to sew the side edge of the cuff. All right, so make sure that the stretch is still going this way, and then we'll fold it over, but first you need to sew that edge. So we'll go down and we'll sew the cuff together. Okay, so there's step one. Then you will fold it over so the right side is out. Now this does eliminate having any seam that touches the skin, okay? I do have my cutter engaged. Yes, I'm trimming just a tiny bit, not a lot for this. We don't need a big seam allowance for this. Okay, so now with right sides together, I'm going to put my cuff inside my sleeve. So here's my red sleeve, and here's the seam, and I usually just match up the seams. Okay, so we'll match those, put a clip, and then, you know, like before, we have to stretch it a little bit, but not a ton. Go like that. And you can put more pins or clips in, but it's kind of hard to work in this little circle. Of course, the larger the shirt, the larger this sleeve opening will be, but this is for a small girl, so the sleeve opening is not very big. So I'm not gonna add more clips because they're just gonna get in the way. So now you have to put this back onto your sewing machine or serger and sew around the circle, turning and stretching as you go, because remember the cuff is a little bit smaller than the sleeve opening, so we do want to make sure that we stretch it to fit as we're sewing. So you can see, not impossible, but I just don't think it's nearly as easy as the alternative. So that is why I almost always choose to do the cuffs with an open sleeve, but let's look at the difference between the two that we have. Okay, so not a whole lot of difference on the outside, right? So here we go. Yep, not a whole lot of difference that you can see on the outside, but if you do look on the inside, you can see this one has the seam and this one doesn't. How do you keep it straight? I don't know, just go slow and keep it straight. All right, so this one probably does look a little bit nicer, but this one is definitely a lot easier. So make your choice, sew your cuff however you want. That's my suggestion, and there's two ways to do it. So now we have cuffs on the bottom, which look great. Okay, so for the final thing, I want to add a band, and I'll call it a band, not a cuff, because it's not actually going to take in. It's simply going to add on, and it's not really gonna have to stretch. So the first thing I need to do is, with right sides together, sew the short edges of my red to make a circle, okay? Because we did already sew up the bottom of the shirt, so now we have to use the circle method again. But I don't mind doing it so much for the bottom of a shirt like this, because it is definitely big and not a problem when I'm sewing. All right, so I'm gonna find the middle of the back and the middle of the front, and I'm going to match those with the seam and then opposite the seam on the bottom of my shirt. Okay, so we're gonna put the back seam matched, which we just sewed, matched with the back there. Okay, and then we'll find the other half. I think this piece of red is slightly smaller because I ran out of fabric, I think. I didn't have one long enough with the stretch going the right direction, so I was a little bit limited. So, but I figured it's wide enough, and if it brings in the bottom of this top a little bit, it'll be fine, because it's a swing top, which means it's loose to begin with. So it might be kind of fun to pull it in a tiny bit and create like a, a little bubble effect, but I'm not sure. We'll see how it looks. I try new things all the time and they don't always work out. Okay, so those of you coming in late, we are adding cuffs and bands to some projects that I'm working on to avoid hemming. That's my rationale for adding the cuff or the band, is then I don't have to hem it. Okay, so a couple more clips. Again, this is a much bigger hem that we're working with, so we won't have to have a tiny little circle in there. We won't even really know it's a circle because it's so big. So we have pinned it on, right sides together. This shirt has a little bit of a high-low effect, so the back is just a little bit longer, and you'll be able to see that when I hold it up, and we'll see how it looks with the band. Hopefully it looks good. All right. I am pulling the cuff or the band just a little bit to make it the same as the shirt. It is a little bit smaller. And then keeping the 3 raw edges lined up as I sew. All right, let's take a look at how it turned out. So there it is, pretty cute. So this will maybe hopefully make it more of a tunic length rather than just, I mean, the swing top already is a little bit longer of a tee, but this will add even a little bit more, so hopefully it's a good wear with leggings shirt. So there you go, fun mixed and matched color shirt. You can see how the band does bring it in a little bit, so instead of flaring out, it kind of just comes down on the band. The back is a little bit longer than the front, but we have a fun look here, and she has some other, so this will hopefully look cute with jeans. I just think this is a little bit weird of color. I didn't really think about that. But we'll have to find some other green leggings that would look cute with it, or red ones, or another fun color. So here's the leggings that we added the cuffs to as well. And then the shirt that we added both the sleeve and the bottom. So hopefully that's some inspiration for you to avoid hemming if it's not something you enjoy, like me, and you want to add cute alternative finishes to your clothing. So there's some ideas. Again, the free patterns, it would work great for hems, or yeah, for jammies. Yes, Jen. So no hems anywhere. Just band it up. You probably would need a little bit more fabric, but if you have extra, it's a great hack that you can do on any pattern that you're already sewing or have and love. So I will be off next week because of Thanksgiving, so I'll be back in 2 weeks with another fun sewing tutorial. Maybe we'll be sewing something Christmassy, I'm not sure. Kathy, yes, my plan is to share a picture of the 3 of them and whatever decal I decide to share on the front. If it's one that I buy or find online, I'll show you. If it's one I create, I'll share it with you guys, of course. And yeah, we'll take a look at what it looks like with all 3 of them when we finally get a picture. So thanks for joining. I'll see you guys next time. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And if you're in the US celebrating Thanksgiving, that you have a wonderful week next week. So bye. See you guys later.